Well, good morning, people. Welcome back to Outlaw Country. Nice day out here today. Didn't start out too nice. Pouring rain and high winds. But it's kind of smartened up now. But it was pretty miserable when I left the truck this morning. I left at about half an hour before daylight because I wanted to get into this area just as it was breaking daylight, which I did, but I just got soaked. I got soaked. I've got my good gear on, but this is not actual rain gear. All right, this is kind of a combination. This is actually called a hybrid jacket. It's a Kuiu hybrid axis, thermal axis jacket. So it's got down insulation for warmth, and the arms and back are somewhat water resistant, but not waterproof. Whatever, it's winter. Gotta expect to get wet. Anyways, I've been in here for a good half an hour now. I haven't seen any deer yet, but lots of sign, lots of good game trails. So a couple things. I'm gonna try to talk a little bit quiet here, but a couple things that I'm gonna share with you guys. Mrs. Outlaw and I went out for a hike a couple of days ago, the two of us, and we went up to my secret little fishing hole that I'm sure any of you that have followed the channel for a little while, I'm sure you guys know that my secret little fishing hole is a hike-in lake, and it's an old deactivated logging road that was deactivated about 10 or 12 years ago now. So the only way to get into it is to hike. There's no vehicle access whatsoever, not even quads or anything. And as many of you know, I've had lots of encounters in there with these forest people. Lots, numerous, can't even count them all. Very first encounter Mrs. Outlaw and I had in there was her and I were in the summertime, well, early summer, going in there to do some fishing, and on our way down to the lake off the old road grade, something was hammering on the trees just down below us, on the same side of the lake as we were on, and clearly hitting the trees, clearly whacking the trees. Now I know that there's a lot of theory out there, and I believe it, that sometimes these beings make these noises with their mouth clacking their teeth together, or some kind of a vocalization with their mouth that makes it sound like a tree knock. And I do agree with that, but this particular time was tree knocks. Another time Mrs. Outlaw and I were in there, and we heard tree knocks from across the lake. Of course, we exited. She had no interest in sticking around, waiting to see what that was. And I've had vocalizations in there. I've had them hooting and hollering, and that's where I had the bear claw left for me when I spent a night in there. All sorts of stuff. I think it was the same trip that I spent a night in there at the lake. There was something banging some rocks together. Oh, there's two of them. There was one down by the lake, and you could hear the rocks clanking together, clearly rocks. And then I heard a response up on the bank, up on the hill, a couple hundred yards away, bang, 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 clanking these rocks together. So anyhow, Mrs. Outlaw and I still go in there. And that's where I found the bones, up in the tree. Remember the bones? So anyways, Mrs. Outlaw and I still go in there because it's a beautiful spot and I love it, and I think we can coexist with these people to some degree. So I've got some game cameras set up in there, some trail cams, and I got some crazy footage, some awesome footage. No, it's not of any forest people, but I got some beautiful big bull elk, some cow elk. I got like 5 different bulls on video. and a couple real nice big bulls and bears and a massive, big, huge cougar. So I'm going to share those with you guys in another video, and you should watch this. It's pretty cool. There's some pretty wild footage in there. I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm not gonna give you any more hints, but watch it when the video comes out. It's gonna be it's not a commercial video. It's but I do strictly, for the most part, almost strictly use Garda Pro cameras now. And the reason is because they're phenomenal trail cameras. I've tried out about 10 to 12 different brands, manufacturers of trail cameras now, because of course they send them to me to try out, to review. I use them and do an honest review for them. And anyways, I've used 10 or 12 different manufacturers now, and the Garda Pro trail cameras, in my opinion, are just hands down the best I've used by far. The video clarity, the sound is incredible. They're very reasonably priced. And I'm going to tell you guys something. I put the cameras that I checked with Mrs. Outlaw, I put them up in July. So they've been up 3 months. And one of them is a solar camera, so it does recharge itself. But the other 3 are not solar. They have internal rechargeable batteries plus backup AA's. And after 3 months, and they had anywhere from 120 to 300 10-second video clips on there, 10 to 15-second video clips. Anywhere from 150 to 300 10 to 15-second video clips, and these cameras still had juice in them. Really impressive. Anyways, watch for that video, you guys, because it's pretty cool. If you love wildlife in their natural setting, it's just wild. So keep an eye out for that. But anyways, we went in there, did our thing there, and downloaded all the videos and whatnot, and we never had anything happen, so that's a good thing. But anyways, what else do we have? Yeah, you know what? There's a gentleman that I spoke with just day before yesterday. He emailed me, and all he did is emailed me and said, "Hey Outlaw, love your channel. I've got some stuff I'd like to share with you. I'm not very good with emails. Would you mind giving me a phone call? Here's my number." And so sure enough, I gave this gentleman a phone call. And he's from northwest, kind of north central Oregon. And I'm going to share with you guys, once I find this spot, take a break here. I'm going to hike a little bit further, but I'm going to share with you guys what this gentleman had to say. It's pretty interesting. I did ask him if there's any chance he could put in an email for me, but he just said, he's an older fella, and he said, I'm not very good at typing on the computer. He goes, I do everything on my iPad, and I'm not very good at typing on my iPad. So I said, fair enough. I'll do my best to jot down a few notes and put it in the old memory bank and discuss it with everybody. So I'm going to share that with you, share a couple more emails. And I leave in a couple of days here for mule deer hunting. So this is the trip I do every year, way up into the mountains, and to a place that I love, and a place that I've hunted for just over 40 years now, about 43 years. And I've been there every year for 43 years, except for 2 years that I was really sick and couldn't go. But it's a great spot, and it's a hot spot. It is one of British Columbia's biggest well-known spots for Bigfoot, Sasquatch, the forest people. They're there. I know it, and many other people know it. Steve Isdall has had numerous encounters up there. He knows these people in this area, in this geographical area, very, very well. And been a ton of encounters up there. Been a ton of shit going up there. So whatever. I've been there for a long, long time, and I'm not going to stop going because of that. So yeah, a couple of days I'm going to head out for that and see if I can't maybe harvest a nice big old mature mule deer buck. If I don't, I don't. But if I do, I do. Anyhow, let's hit the road and we'll work our way up the valley here a little ways and keep an eye out for deer. We'll find a spot, take a break, get a couple of emails read out for you guys. Appreciate y'all. I'm going to say that right now before I forget, because I always something goes on and I get sidetracked, but I appreciate every single subscriber here. You guys are awesome. You guys are the reason this channel exists. All right, it's not because of me. If I had no subscribers and nobody was watching, I wouldn't be sharing this. I'd still be out doing it, and I'd still be recording it for me and my friends and family. But if it wasn't for you people, I'd have nobody to share with, so I wouldn't be posting. So thank you guys all very, very much. I do appreciate every subscriber. I appreciate so much every single member. People that have joined the membership. I started that because you asked for it. And I do appreciate everybody on the membership section. You know, like I say, it's something that you guys asked for, and there's some perks that go along with it, some free giveaways and stuff like that. And if that's what you want, that's what you get. All right. There's been some shit going on with YouTube lately. I don't know anything about it, but I've had a lot of people commenting and emailing and saying, "Hey, I'm not getting your notifications when you post a new video, and I've been unsubscribed. I didn't unsubscribe, but I've been unsubscribed and whatnot. I don't know what's going on, you know, but it really does help. It really does help Outlaw Country when people do subscribe and when people do watch the videos. Yes, it does help the channel. It helps the channel grow. And again, I don't know a lot about how YouTube works. I'm a redneck, right? But it does help the channel grow and get out there, and it helps YouTube sort of spread the word of Outlaw Country. So what's going on with it, I don't know, but it is important that if you know, people do like the channel, to help the channel grow, it is important to subscribe, and it is important to watch the videos and you know, give a like or whatever you call it, a thumbs up or a thumbs down. You don't like it, give it a thumbs down. Nobody's perfect, right? It is what it is. Anyhow, it's enough babbling. Let's hit the trail here, find a spot to take a little break and get a couple videos read. All right, let's go. Pretty quiet in here today. I do hear a couple of birds chirping, so that's good. I don't like it when it's too quiet. There we go. I was going to sit down by the river and read a couple emails for you, but it's ripping. The river is ripping, and I thought it might be hard for you to hear me, so I got the river just 45-50 yards to my right. You can probably hear it in the background, but change it up a little bit. Do some reads from here. It's quiet in here this morning. There's no squirrels, no birds, no nothing. Quiet. Anyhow, I've only got 2 cameras in here on this spot. I haven't checked them yet. I haven't got to them yet, but I'm gonna walk in here, hunt my way in, check the cameras, and then hunt my way out. So anyways, I was telling you guys that I had a great phone conversation the other day with a fantastic man that emailed me, and he just emailed me and said, hey, I'd really love to sit and have a chat with you about these Sasquatch. And not very good with emails, but I got a lot to share. I got a lot to talk about. He left his number and said, give me a call when you get a chance. So I did. I was making a bunch of other phone calls, and I got a hold of this man, and his name is Howard Bell. And Howard lives, he did tell me the town he lives in, but I'm not going to share that, just out of respect to him, privacy. But Howard lives in sort of central, a little bit to the west, central, northern Oregon. And he says he's an old man, but he's only his early 60s, right? So he's really not that much older than this old man here. But he said he was first sort of brought to outlaw country because of the hunting and the outdoors. And he goes, I've had a passion for the outdoors since I was a little kid. And he says, I still do. I absolutely love being out in the wilderness. I love hunting. And so he's a lot like I am, and in many ways. And he also is an absolute, he's a hunting fanatic, but he also does most of his hunting solo. And, in his early 60s, still does most of it solo. He said his wife doesn't like it. She never has. But he just said he loves his alone time in the wilderness, whether it's for a morning hunt, a full day, a weekend, a week, whatever it is. He just loves to be in the wilderness, just alone with his thoughts and out with nature. And he's an avid deer hunter, big time deer hunter, and elk. And he said years and years ago he did hunt sheep for a couple of years, never got a sheep, but mostly deer and elk. And he's never hunted moose or caribou or anything like that. So anyways, Howard and I had a really good chat for probably about 2 hours. And I asked Howard at the beginning of our phone call, I said, hey, would you be interested in doing a video call? I could set up a video call and you and I could do this on video or whatever. And he said, you know what, I'd rather not. He goes, I'm just not about my face being out there on social media. And I said, fair enough. Absolutely not a problem. So Howard and I had a really good chat. And like I say, a lot of solo hunting since he was 10 years old, in his early 60s now. So, we're talking 50 years of hunting. I mean, I've been 45, so I'm getting up there as well. But what is interesting to me is he has had encounters with the Sasquatch. He says, I've had numerous times that they've been right there around me. And he said he's always been fascinated with them. And he said the very first time that he heard one, he knew it was a Sasquatch. He knew it was no other kind of animal. He said, I heard this thing talking in a language I couldn't understand. And he goes, I knew it wasn't a person. I was way back in the mountains hunting mule deer. I knew it wasn't another hunter. I knew it wasn't a person. It was a foreign language, but this thing was talking. But there was only one of them. So he goes, I don't know who it was talking to or what it was talking to, but he goes, I could hear this thing talking. And he listened to it for a long, long time. And he said as soon as he just, not loudly or anything, he just called out, hello, who's out there? And it went dead silent. And he heard one smack, which he thinks was a good-sized log hitting a tree or something, maybe a hand hitting a tree. He heard one smack and a couple of thump, 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 like something walking away, just a couple of steps and gone. And he goes, I stuck around and I was listening, and I'm like, you weren't scared? And he goes, not really. He goes, I was more intrigued than I was fearful. He goes, I just wanted to know what the hell this was. And he goes, I wanted to see one of these things. So he said from that first time, and he goes, then that first experience happened, I think he said it was like 35 years ago. And he said from that point on, he kept saying to myself, fuck, I just want to see one of these things. I just want to see one. I want to, and he wasn't obsessed with it by any means, but he goes, I just wanted to see one. I'd seen the odd video here and there or whatever, and, you hear stories and whatever, but he goes, I just wanted to see one for myself. So fast forward a few years, and he was in a different area from where he sort of had this first encounter, and he was deer hunting again. It was a few years later, and he was sitting in a logging slash, and clear-cut logging slash, and he goes, I was sitting in the logging slash just glassing for deer, and he was only maybe 10 or 15 yards out from the edge of the timber, glassing for deer, using the timber to sort of hide his silhouette of his body. And anyhow, he said he was sitting there and he heard someone in English say, hello, why are you here? And Howard's like, the frickin', he didn't say frickin', okay? He has no hesitation using the proper words, but I'm going to spare you guys the foul language a bit. Anyways, he goes, I hear this, hello, why are you here? And he goes, and the frickin' hair on the back of my neck stood on end, and I spun around and I'm looking and there's nobody there. But he goes, I'm telling you, this voice was 10 feet from me when it said that. And he goes, I was looking around, there was nobody there. And then he was going like, what the hell? Like, he goes, I mustn't have heard it, but he goes, I know I did. I'm trying to remember everything the way that he put it, so bear with me. But he said, he's looking around for a few minutes and, looking into the trees, and there was nobody there. And 5 or 10 minutes goes by, and he hears this talking again, very, very softly. And it's this foreign language that he goes, I can't understand it. It's kind of like babbling and like garbled talk. And he goes, and it's literally, it's whispering. And he goes, it is right there. Like, he goes, there is something or somebody right around me. But he goes, I turn around slowly, I'm looking and looking. And he said about 15 or 20 feet behind him, because he's 20 feet out into the logging slash, he said about 15 or 20 feet into the timber, as he's looking, he sees this huge, and the way that he explained it is so much better than I can explain it, but he said he saw this huge blur in the trees, and it was like, it was moving. And he goes, all the backdrop behind that, like around this thing, was crystal clear. The trees and everything else was crystal clear. And then there's this shape, and he goes, it was the shape of a Bigfoot. But he said, all of the trees and everything behind this thing were all blurry and distorted, and everything was moving. So I understand exactly what he meant, and I hope you guys do too. So you're looking at the forest here, and everything's crystal clear, but there's a 9-foot shape figure that's all blurry and kind of distorted and moving. And he said he was locked onto this. And as he saw this, the talking stopped. And then he said he went to reach for his gun, and he had his gun. I don't know if his gun was sitting on his lap or on his shoulder or whatever, but he goes, I went to reach for my gun, and I, just out of fear, he goes, I wasn't going to shoot at nothing because there was nothing there, but he goes, there was something there. He goes, I grabbed my gun. I went to reach for my gun, and as I reached for my gun, I'm watching this glimmering, distorted object, and it just disappears. It's gone. Crystal clear now, you can see everything. And there's no noise, no nothing. And Howard said it was the most unnerving feeling that I've ever had in my life in the woods. Because he goes, I didn't know what the hell it was. He says at that time, I didn't, so we're talking whatever, maybe 30 years ago. He goes, I didn't know much or anything about Bigfoot and Sasquatch and how they, like what they are. So he said this whole distorted object and sounds and noises and voices, he goes, it was pretty unnerving. So there was that. And again, Howard was like, I just wanted to see one. I just wanted to see one with my own two eyes, for real. And he said, every time I went out in the woods, I kept saying that, God, I'd love to see one of these things. I just want to see one. Like, I'm not here to hurt it, kill it, nothing. I just want to see one. So fast forward another 10 years. So now we're talking, like 15 to 20 years ago. And he said he goes, I was out he had an elk tag. I think he was hunting elk. He had an elk tag. He was hunting elk, and he had seen a herd of elk in the timber and was stalking them, and they were, whatever. They were quite a ways away, but he was stalking. There was a bull in the herd. He was stalking, try to get within shooting range, and he hears the talking again in a language he can't understand. And he says, I immediately switched from stalking elk to like, okay, I want to see you. Where the fuck are you? Show yourself, sort of a thing. And he kept saying that to himself, like, show yourself. I just want to see one. And the talking stopped. Completely stopped. Nothing. He waits a few minutes, whatever. Nothing. So he's like, son of a bitch. Kind of ignores that, goes back to the stalking these elk. The minute he goes back to stalking these elk, here's the voice again. So he says, I stopped and I kind of turned around and said, what the fuck is your problem? And right there, within about 50 feet of where he was standing, this Sasquatch steps out from behind a tree and shows himself. And Howard said that he goes, I dropped my gun, and he goes, all this thing did was stood out behind the tree and looked at me like this and stared at me for a second and then tucked away back behind the tree. Howard says, I dropped my gun and I've never been so scared in my entire life. He goes, my body went completely numb. I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. I couldn't bend down and pick up my gun. He goes, this thing did no intimidation movement or action or nothing, but he goes, I was absolutely scared out of my mind. I was scared beyond belief. And he says, I stood there for a few minutes. I literally could not move a muscle. Eventually, he says, I was able to move. I bent down, I picked up my rifle, put my rifle on my shoulder. And he says, as soon as I shouldered my rifle, the thing peeked out again from behind the tree and looked at me. And he said it made a bit of a huffing sound with its mouth, like kind of like he said it kind of sounded like a doe deer or whatever when they take off when they're scared. But he goes, the way this thing exhaled, like the capacity of its lungs, he goes, it was incredible. And he goes, I was scared shitless. And he said from that day on, his life was changed. And he goes, I regretted it right then. And he goes, 20 years later, I still regret it today, asking to see one of these things. He goes, I wish I'd have never seen one. Because he said, I don't know what it was, but he said, for me, just the knowledge that they are out there, and they've been out there all these years that I've been hunting, all these years that I'm sitting there thinking I'm alone, and these things are right there. He goes, it scared the life out of me. He didn't stop hunting, but he said it changed him forever. And he goes, I just wish I would have never asked to see one. He goes, I asked for it, I got it, and I wish it would have never happened. What is funny is he talked to his wife about it, and he said numerous times, I wish I would have never asked to see one of these beings. He goes, it just changed my life in the forest. And that was the last one he ever actually saw. He did hear things. He saw structures, you know, out in the woods that he knows were built by them, but that was the last one he ever saw. But he goes, that was whatever, 18 or 20 years ago, and he goes, that, I closed my eyes, and he goes, I can see that thing like it was yesterday. I can see its eyes, I can see its mouth, its nose, its ears. He goes, I could see its face moving and its forehead, the wrinkles in its forehead as it was looking at me. He said it was a split second. It was like maybe 1 or 2 seconds that each time that the thing peered out. First time he said was a little longer than the second, but he goes, it felt like hours. He says, it felt like I was standing there staring at this thing for hours. And he goes, it's burned into my memory. And he goes, I don't know, maybe that, he goes, I asked for it and they did it. They showed themselves to me, and maybe that's the punishment, is that it's burned in my memory till the day I die. Anyhow, I hope I didn't butcher what you told me, Howard, and I was, you know, I'm going off of memory what we talked about, but thanks, man, for the phone call. You know, if you ever change your mind, you'd love to have an in-person, man, I'm all over it. If you don't want to, not a problem. We will stay in touch 100%. You're a great guy. And, you know, there was so much more that Howard shared with me. Again, that was sort of the gist of things. You know, so the reason I'm fascinated by what he said is that he said he wanted to see one. I want to see one. I want to see one. And I get a lot of comments like that. And I tell people all the time, no, you don't. Trust me, you don't want to see one. Okay? You can never take that back. You can never rewind. Once you've seen one, you've seen it, and it never goes away, ever. So really think about what you say. I come out here, I'm telling you right now, I don't want to see one. Okay? I don't want to see one. All right, I know they're here. Okay, I made a poster a little while ago. Andrea Johnson, super fantastic lady, loyal subscriber for a long time. Andrea all the time watches my videos and goes through the videos, and she scours the bush around me and behind me and whatnot. And she's the one that sends a lot of these pictures in. She probably sends 60 to 70% of the photos in that I've posted. Some I've caught, and some other people have caught, but Andrea Johnson, she's got an eye for it, man, and she catches these things. Okay, I don't come out here hoping for that, wanting that, wishing on that. I don't want to see them. I know they're here. I don't want to see them. I just want to do my thing. So, all right. God, I hope I didn't take up too much of your time, guys, but I had to share with you what Howard said, so it could be a long video. This could be a long video. Good thing there's a fast forward button on YouTube, eh? Let me see here. Here we go. Oh, it's cold. All right, here we go, guys. Hey, Darren, thanks for what you're doing to bring the awareness of Sasquatch, of the Sasquatch people to the public. My name's Colin Dunbar, and I live in Washington State. I'm a heavy-duty mechanic, and I've worked in the logging industry for the past 10 years. I'm not a hunter, but I do love... river and lake fishing in whatever spare time I ever get. Seems like work's always getting in the way of fun. I don't have any knowledge really to speak about for the Sasquatch people, but I'm doing what I can to try to learn more about them. Here's why. I was working on a yarder about 4 years ago, and I laid eyes on one of these people at about 75 feet. I'd been working on a machine for about 3 hours. Sorry, I'd been working on the machine for about 3 hours or so, and I jumped in the cab to try to fire it up. I hit the ignition button, and the engine cranked over, and I see something just down the hill in the block, maybe 75 feet from the machine. No doubt in my mind, 100% it was definitely a Sasquatch. It started moving across the block to the right, and I got a few really good looks at this thing. This thing was probably 9 feet tall, and I'd guess at 800 pounds or more at least. It was huge. It was thick from the bottom of its legs to the top of its head. At first, it was moving pretty slowly across the opening, stepping over the large trees on the ground, until I blew the air horn on the machine. And I'm here to tell you, that bloody thing moved so fast that I could barely keep my eyes on it. In a split second or two, it had made the 100 yards or so to the edge of the block and into the trees. I was absolutely shocked at how quickly this thing moved. I got out of the yarder and jumped down and walked over to the edge of the road and was looking into the trees where this thing ran when I heard the most frightening scream that I've ever heard in my life. I'm not gonna lie, man. This scream / roar scared me to death. I literally ran back to my truck, jumped in and locked the doors. I started the truck, sat there for a minute or so, and then said, fuck it, I'm out of here. It was only around 11 a.m. But I was so scared, I wasn't able to get back out of the truck again. I ended up leaving the block and headed back for the shop. When I got there, I told my boss what had happened and that I had left all my tools on the yarder, and I just couldn't go back up there. My boss is a great guy, and I was scared he was going to laugh his ass off at me and tease me, but he didn't. He listened to me and genuinely believed me. He told me not to worry, that he'd go up there himself, deal with the yarder, and grab my tools. The next morning, I ended up going with Chuck, but I'll tell you, I was still scared to get out of the truck once we got there, even with Chuck right there with me. He said, wow, Colin, this thing really rattled you. I told Chuck I was still terrified. He had no idea what this thing sounded like, and I saw it with my own eyes. I did manage to help Chuck to get the yarder going, and we cleaned up the machine, grabbed our tools, and headed back out to the shop. We talked the entire I don't know if my microphone caught that or not. That was wild, man. That sounded like, if that wasn't a solid whoop, whoop. Boy, I hope the microphone caught that. Jesus. Holy. That was not cool. That literally sent a shiver up my spine. Like, I'm not kidding you. Sorry, guys. Great, now I'm going to be on edge here for the rest of the frickin' talk. Sorry, I don't even know where I was here. We talked the entire way back, and I told him in great detail what I saw. I couldn't stress enough to Chuck how quickly this thing moved when I blew that horn. Chuck told me he'd heard stories of Bigfoot before, and he did believe they existed, but he'd never seen one himself. My response to him was, you never want to either. I told Chuck I didn't know if I could work in the field anymore, so he put me in the shop for a while. It took a couple years for me to be able to go back out into the field working on equipment, and I'm still here doing it now. I'm all right now, but I do still look around all the time, waiting for one to pop out of nowhere again. The image of this Sasquatch is permanent. Well, you guys, this is not going to be a great video, and I apologize. I don't know what is going on. My camera died again, fully charged. I don't know what is happening. So I just checked where we were at with. Okay, I'm going to try to finish off here before we lose all battery power again. I threw another battery in and see what happens. The image of this Sasquatch is permanently burned in my memory. I honestly pray I never see another. The fear I felt was unbelievable, and I don't want to feel that again. I can't help but laugh when I hear people say these beings aren't real, that these stories are all made up. I wish those people could lay eyes on one like I did. They'd change their tune in a hurry. I know that for sure. Thanks again, Darren, for what you do. You gave me the courage to share, as I'm sure you've done for many others. Colin Dunbar. Appreciate you, Colin. Thank you very much. Yeah, there you go. Howard told me that he wished he'd never seen one, and Colin wishes he'd never seen one. I wish I'd never seen one. So be careful what you wish for, people. Be careful what you wish for. I'm going to try to get through another email here because, man, I'm on the edge of my seat, let me tell you. I'm still getting shivers right now. All right. Thanks, Colin. Appreciate it, buddy. I'll reach out to you. Promise. Bear with me. Give me some time. Next. Hello, Outlaw Country. My name's Emmett George, and I've got a lifetime of encounters that I've decided to share with you. I live in a small, tight-knit community, so out of respect for my friends, family, and neighbors, I'm not going to say where I'm from. I'll be turning 70 this June, and although I can't do things quite as fast as I used to, I still do them. I still go hunt a couple times a year, and I also run a trap line for every winter and have done this for a little over 50 years now. A good friend of mine, Martin, is also a trapper, and his line borders mine to the north. We've known each other 35 years, and he has spoken to you about his hairy man experiences. Martin, our friend Martin. Wow. We generally see each other only a few times each winter, on the line, and then maybe a couple of times a year in town. But we became close friends early on. He never told me what happened to him until the following winter when we ran into each other. And the funny thing is, after Martin told me what he saw, I never shared my stories with him. Hell, come to think of it, I never even acknowledged to him that I'd seen anything like what he saw, even though I had. It wasn't until the following spring, when we met for breakfast in town one day, that I opened up to Martin and shared my stories of these people. He told me that day that he wrote into you about what happened to him and what he'd seen. So boy, you guys, this video is bound and determined not to work out for me today. Second battery drained. I don't know what's going on with this camera. I don't know what's going on, but I'm on my third battery, and that is not normal. Those batteries last hours. So I don't know what the frick is going on. Like, I don't get it. Is it something around here, or my camera, or me, or... Anyhow, sorry about that. So I'm going to carry on here. He told me that he wrote in to you about what had happened to him and what he'd seen, so I decided to check you out. I know that my days on the working the line are numbered, and heck, I know my days above ground are numbered, so I've decided to reach out and share with you a bit of my life experiences with the hairy man. The first time I saw what I'm sure was a hairy man was almost 60 years ago. I was 10 or 11 years old, and my mom had asked me to go to the woodshed, fill up the bin with firewood. I was the oldest of 3 boys, so I ended up having most of the chores around the house. It was almost dark. Our woodshed was behind the house near Dad's smoke shack. The bin we filled was like a little wooden wagon that we left at the back door of the house. I dragged the wagon to the shed, turned the shed light on, started putting chunks of wood into the bin. I was grabbing wood, turning to set it in the bin, and as I turned to set a chunk in, this large, hairy hand grabbed the piece of wood and set it in the bin as I was turning for the next piece. I quickly turned back around, and there was this huge, hairy man standing behind the wagon looking at me. You have to remember, I was only 10 years old, and I was scared to death of monsters and the boogeyman in the closet. As my eyes looked up at this huge, hairy man standing in front of me, this thing made a strange noise like clacking its teeth together and motioned its hand towards the trees behind the shed. It's like it was telling me to go that way. I was almost frozen in place. It was like everything else around me didn't exist, just me and this huge, hairy being standing in front of me. I tried to scream for my mom, but nothing came out. I thought to myself, run, but I couldn't move my feet. I could barely breathe, and I heard a loud ringing in my head as this thing motioned again towards the trees behind the shed. All of a sudden, the hairy man reached its huge hand out towards me, and just as it was about to touch me, I closed my eyes out of fear. I feel this hand on my shoulder, and I start to cry. Way off in the distance, I hear my mom's voice calling my name. I open my eyes, and my mom is standing right in front of me with her hands on my shoulders, and she's crying, saying, "Oh, Emmett, come here." Mom grabbed me and hugged me, and I started crying and trying to explain what I'd seen. It took me a minute to realize that it was pitch dark out now, and I wasn't at the woodshed anymore. I could see the lights of the house off in the distance, but it was a little ways through the trees. My mom got me back to the house, took me into the kitchen, and sat me down. She asked why I wandered off in the darkness. Mom told me later on that I'd been outside for 15 or maybe 20 minutes, and it usually only takes a maximum of 10 minutes to fill the wood bin, so that's why she came out to get me, and I was gone. I told Mom exactly what happened, and I knew by the look on her face that she believed me. My dad was away for a couple of days, so Mom locked all the doors in the house and told us boys were not allowed outside without her. When Dad got home, he sat me down and asked me to tell him exactly what happened, so I did. He never doubted me for a second. He listened carefully and said, "I'm just glad you're safe, son." I had nightmares for a long time afterwards, and I was scared to be outside after dark. There were a few times that I know for a fact that I saw a hairy man at my bedroom window in the middle of the night. I'd wake up hearing voices, thinking I was dreaming, and I'd look at the window, and there he was, standing at the window staring at me. Every time I'd try so hard to scream for Mom and Dad, but I couldn't make a sound. Eventually, it would go away. I'd lay in bed and cry until I fell asleep. I was 16 years old the next time I saw one, and although I was much older, it still shook me to the core. I was out duck hunting with my brother at a slough not far from the house, and we had half a dozen or so ducks with us. We were walking the trail back to the house before dark, and my brother dropped a duck. I picked it up for him, and when I stood back up, right there was a hairy man standing behind us on the trail. My brother dropped his gun and his ducks, and I dropped my ducks too, but not my gun. Once again, I was unable to move any part of my body or make any sound. Trust me, I tried to scream. My mind was yelling, but no sounds came out. My mind was yelling, but no sounds came out. My brother was right beside me and not able to move either. This thing stepped towards us, picked up all of our ducks, turned, and slowly walked into the forest. Once he was out of sight, we were both able to move and speak. My brother started crying hysterically, so I grabbed him and his shotgun and started heading quickly towards the house. As we walked into the back door, my dad came to us and asked what happened. I told him. My brother was still hysterical. My dad was pretty angry this time and kept muttering swear words. Several years went by without any more run-ins with a hairy man, and I was thankful. They were always on my mind when I was out in the woods, but I did what I had to do. I was 19 when I went out with my uncle on his trap line for the first time. This is the same trap line. This is the trap line that he handed down to me that I still run today. My uncle and I were out checking traps and got to a spot that he'd had some wolf snares. One of the snare sets was gone, and you could see where the wolf had got caught up and took off, pulling the trap from the tree. Uncle told me to stay with the snow machine while he goes to look for the wolf. I'm sitting on the machine and I get a strong feeling that I'm being watched. I start looking around into the trees, feeling really uneasy. Then I spot him. There's a hairy man squatted down beside a tree, looking right at me. I yelled, "Hey," really loud, and this time the words came out. This thing stood up and ran. It was gone instantly, like a flash. A minute later, my uncle comes back dragging a dead wolf in the snare. He asked what I was yelling at, so I told him. I pointed to where this thing I pointed to where I saw this thing, and Uncle went to take a look. He stared at the ground, shook his head, said a few swear words, and then he came back to the machine and said, "Yep, it was a hairy man all right. Let's get going." We wasted no time checking the traps and headed home. I'm not going to bore you with all the times I've heard these people outside my cabin or in their wilderness, but there was one more run-in that left a burning memory with me. This happened 20 years ago on my line in the middle of the season. I was at the end of my line, 15 miles from my cabin, on my way back for the day. It was pretty much dark, and there was a fair bit of new snow, so I was going slow on the machine. The trail followed the riverbank most of the way, and there was a steep hill coming up off the river onto the ridgeline that led back to my cabin. I had to give the machine some gas to get up the hill, and just before the top, my ski hit a stump and the machine tipped over and rolled. As I fell off the machine, I smacked my head on something, and when I went to stand up, I passed out. I do remember feeling dizzy and lightheaded, but then everything went black. You may not want to believe what I'm about to tell you, but this is fact and how it happened. I woke up in my cabin, on my bed with all of my clothes and my boots on. I was very cold, but not near as cold. It was very cold, but not near as cold as outside. My head was pounding, and I had a gash on the back of my head. The door to my cabin was closed, but not latched. I don't even know how I got there, Darren. I was close to 10 miles away when I flipped the machine. The first thing I did was light a fire to warm up. Then I grabbed a wet cloth from my head. I opened the door, fully expecting to see my snow machine, but it wasn't there. I was confused. I got changed into some dry clothes. I couldn't remember anything after the fall. I do remember passing out, but that's it. I took some Tylenol for my head and finally went to bed and slept hard till morning. I waited till daylight and then went out to see what the hell was going on. My machine was not there, no tracks in the snow. And so I was even more confused. I waited another day until my head felt better, and I started out on snowshoes to where I had flipped the machine. It was a long walk, but when I got to the hill, sure enough, there's my machine upside down at the bottom. It took some work to dig it out and get it flipped over, but I eventually did. I was sitting on the seat, catching my breath and taking a break before heading back to the cabin when I hear a couple smacks to my right. I turn and look to see a hairy man standing 30-40 feet from me. For the first time ever, I was able to speak, and my gut told me to say thank you. So that's exactly what I said out loud. This being just stared at me. Then it turned and walked off. Now I can't say for sure the hairy man saved my life that day because I wasn't conscious, but something got me back to my cabin where I survived the night, because at 50 below, I surely would have died beside my machine. That was the last time I ever saw one of these people. I've heard them since. I've seen tracks, but I've never seen another. I'm still weary about them, but part of me feels like they are not bad people. I can't help but feel that. I've heard several stories of horror involving them, and when I was young, I'm sure that one was trying to lure me away from my home. But I'm also just as certain that the one I saw at my accident spot did in fact save my life. I wanted people to hear my thoughts on the hairy man before my time is over. You may choose to not believe me, and that's fine. I know what I've experienced, I know what I've gone through. I've spent my life in the woods, I've had many memorable experiences, but these are at the top of my list, and I felt it was time that I shared. Thanks for your time, Darren. And feel free to share this with others if you'd like. Your friend, Emmett George. Wowzer. Wowzer, Emmett. Martin. You know my buddy Martin, or I know your buddy Martin. Unbelievable. Unbelievable encounters, man. 10 years old, your first time seeing one of these people. Holy shit. Could you imagine a 10-year-old seeing a real life monster? Now, if that's not going to do you in, what will? Emmett, I really appreciate you sharing everything with us. That is wild that you and Martin are close friends. I've reached out to Martin, haven't gotten a call back from him. I hope Martin is fine. I hope you're fine, Emmett. I guess you guys are probably trapping now. I'll try to get a hold of you. I'll definitely respond to your email. Didn't see a phone number there, but I'll definitely respond to you. Love to have a chat with you. Just can't imagine the stuff that you've gone through, the stuff that you've seen out there on a trap line, like remote wilderness. I mean, where I am is remote. I'm quite a ways back off any of the main roads, but where you are is really remote. Man, I am still unnerved. I am not feeling comfortable. So with that being said, I'm going to get the hell out of here. I've seen enough for today. I've heard enough for today. I'm going to get out of here, guys. I'm going to work my way up the ridge and call her a day. All right, let's make it happen. Let's get out of here. I'm still curious as hell if my camera, I can't even talk, I can't even think right now. My attention, all of my energy and attention is focused to this ridge right up here above me. Because there was something there. I'm not questioning that whatsoever. I just hope that my microphone may have picked it up. Well, I'm gonna work my way, that direction, that whatever made that noise, that's where it came from, that ridge right there, up that ridge a little ways. It wasn't very far away. I'm hoping my microphone picked it up. That was pretty wild. If my microphone didn't pick that up, you guys, it was distinct. It was clearly like 2 or 3 whoops, like whoop, whoop, like, but deep. And then I thought I heard some other noises up there too, but like it literally, it's still right now, I'm like, it makes me shiver just thinking about it. Anyways, what do you do? Okay guys, I'm gonna rock and roll. I'm gonna spend the rest of the day, hunt this valley, and then get back to my truck. Appreciate every one of you. I hope you're all healthy, and you take care, be safe, and as I always say, be a good person. Just be a good person. Super easy thing to do. Life is short. Somebody made a comment on one of my videos and said, you know what, in the end, when the end comes for all of us, all you have is your name. And I thought that was a really remarkable statement. All you have is your name, who you were as a person. That's all you got. Because when you die, it don't make a damn bit of difference how much money you have or don't have or whatever, you're gone. So all you have is your name and who you were while you were here. So be a good person.